Hi, this is Al Morris from Koii Network. We're building decentralized internet that empowers users to both consume and supply raw resources to build the future of AI, social networks, search engines, and more. You're tuned into Edge of NFT, where we build the future of digital innovation. This is going to shape a major role in the Web3 world that we all want to live in. So stay tuned and keep listening.
Hey, Web3 curious listeners, stay tuned for today's episode to learn how you can use your computer or phone's compute power to generate passive income, and how Deepin and AI technologies are evolving and being potentially bolstered by meme coins, and how AI can potentially disrupt our daily lives by 2030. All this and more at the Edge of Koii. Cue the intro.
Welcome to the Edge of NFT, the podcast that brings you the top 1% of Web3 today and what will stand the test of time. We explore the nuts and bolts of the business side and also the human element of how Web3 is changing the way we interact with the things we love. This podcast is for the dreamers, disruptors, and doers who are pumped about this ecosystem and driving where it goes next.
Welcome to the Edge of NFT, the podcast created by Jeff Kelly, Ethan Jenny, and Josh Krieger, featuring a variety of top-notch guests and other hosts like myself, Richard Carthon. It's another production of the Edge of Company, a quickly growing media ecosystem empowering the pioneers of Web3 tech and culture, and responsible for other groundbreaking endeavors like the Outer Edge Innovation Festival in LA and Riyadh. Today's sponsor episode features Al Morris, who is the CEO and co-founder of Koii Network. He is dedicated to building a decentralized internet that empowers users. He holds a degree in mechanical, sensor, and robotics engineering from Queen's University, and his journey into Web3 began in 2015 with an interest in robotics and distributed ecosystems. This led him to co-found a crypto school in Chicago, where he spent 4 years researching blockchain technologies. Koii Network is a centralized platform aimed at creating a new internet model where users can both consume and supply resources. Unlike traditional internet companies that rely on large data centers, Koii leverages individual home computers to enhance privacy and economic control. The network also employs centralized identifiers, DIDs, to ensure user verification and prevent bot activity, fostering a community-driven ecosystem that supports the attention economy. Al, it's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Hey, yeah, great to be back.
Yeah, man. A lot has happened since we first had you on a show a while ago. A lot of development, a lot of exciting things on the horizon. But I first want to start with like a refresher, right? So before we get into the specifics of Koii, I want to just get a little bit more into your background and what initially drew you into Web3. And then I want you to then talk a little bit more about like the challenges that you faced transitioning from robotics into blockchain.
Yeah, so I'd always been really interested in software. Growing up, I wrote a lot of applications even when I was like 14, 15 years old. And I spent a decent bit of time actually in India working in the software industry, helping build out a number of different applications and working with some dev shops over there. But then I ended up going into robotics because I wanted to build real things that could actually change people's lives, like really hands-on, actually get some hardware out there. And the thinking at that point was, robots can improve people's lives because they can do work that we don't want to do, and that can free people up to pursue, more fulfilling lifestyles. What I ended up realizing is as I got into robotics and automation is it just actually displaces a lot of people. And I watched like full towns where we were in there automating factories. And I got to see, firsthand how devastating that can be for people financially and how it kind of affects the local economy around these towns. And what I started noticing is, if we want to fix the world with technology, we need a better information supply chain first, because that's really the core to all of it, right? Like when I first came out of school, it was in 2015, and I was watching a lot of automation in like local factory towns. Watching the 2016 election happen in the US, there was like a lot of kind of displaced people who also were very politically active. And the way that shift started to happen, you could see a lot of gears starting to turn in a bad direction in the economy. I saw that the internet is like a massive component of all this. It also is around when Cambridge Analytica came out. So that whole scandal that happened with Facebook and kind of like election interference and all that stuff really tied me into the idea that the internet's an absolutely critical piece of infrastructure. And it's held by very few because it's a lot of costs with data centers. And so what we've been trying to do with Koii is to set up a system where everybody with their computers can participate in building the new internet. I'd say at this point, we've actually been really successful in putting all these pieces together.
Yeah. I like that the intersection and understanding like how automation can be good, but also can cause displacement. And there's a balance of doing both. And I think blockchain provides a way in that automation process that can give people the ability to, although they are helping to automate things and to scale things out, they can also participate in the benefits of helping to do that through different technologies that exist. So I want to talk about that a little bit more. Because of the rise of decentralized technologies, what unique opportunities do you see emerging for individuals and businesses in this space, and how does Koii help with those opportunities?
Yeah, so I think the AI buzzword gets slapped onto a lot of things these days. We've been looking at this problem since about like 2016, 2017. The whole Koii team has always been dedicated to taking lots of people's computers and allowing you to tap into new economic models. And so we see revenue sharing as the big opportunity ahead of us. I didn't expect that AI was going to pick up this quickly, to be honest. And I think a lot of the tech we see out there, like ChatGPT, isn't actually as advanced as it might appear. You interact with these things, they feel very real, but actually, ultimately, what they're doing is they're very good at convincing people that they are functioning AI. They're not necessarily like, fully super intelligent systems that we can entrust to run our government or do scientific research and that kind of thing. Yet is the key word. The thing that they're missing is they need more compute power and more data. And those are both things that people actually have and have a massive excess of. So in a large part, the way that they trained ChatGPT and these types of products was to go out and scrape the internet with lots of computers. We have lots of computers, and as individuals, we actually have better access to the internet than most large companies do. And so if you set up in a data center, you have a bit of a bottleneck because there's only one cable running in and out of the data center. Everybody who rents from that data center has to fight over capacity on that cable. If you use a whole bunch of home computers, you have, in our case, 90,000 people hoping to get to 1 million next year with home computers connected to fiber optic cables. We've each got our own bandwidth. We've got pretty good compute capacity. If you have a new Mac or like any of the most recent computers, they're very fast. And you can put all that capacity together to make something that's quite big very quickly. And then we all share the revenue, which is a much better model. And I think as these things start to come up to, being competitive in terms of quality, people are going to make the switch just for ethical reasons, right? Like, why would you support some company in California when you can support a community of people around the world? And the revenue sharing side of it, I think, is going to accelerate that dramatically.
Yeah. I think the rev share is definitely attractive, especially when you're a machine that is going to be doing its thing anyway. You're going to have a way for it to be making you money potentially in the background, just by helping to support the network. It perks a lot of people's ears, and it makes people want to at least investigate like how you can be a part of it. And one of the things that's kind of happening right now is a surge in the token launches, especially as people have kind of been like trying to time the market, if you will. What factors do you think are helping to drive this growth, and like how is that going to help benefit the Koii ecosystem?
So there's been two big themes this year. DePIN was the first one that kind of came out, and I think a lot of maybe less mature DePIN projects were able to launch just with hype. And so we've seen a lot of those actually crater, which has been kind of sad. So there's been a lot of like node sales, and there's a bunch of companies out there that are also just reselling enterprise capacity. For people that don't maybe understand what that means, some network might say, we're a compute network, we have a decentralized cluster of devices, but actually what they're doing is they're renting it from a data center and reselling it to you with a token. And the issue in those cases is if you give a token to somebody who's in a data center place, they're going to have to sell the whole token, right? Because they have fixed costs, and those fixed costs aren't going anywhere. And if they have high fixed costs, they're going to have to sell basically all of the tokens that you pay out to them. And so that means most of these networks are operating on really thin margins, or even negative margins in some cases, where they're using the token sale proceeds to actually subsidize the cost of buying this enterprise capacity. And that's why a lot of those tokens are not doing so well. And I won't name names, but I mean, you go look at the market and see the people who've launched a DePIN token this year, and a lot of them aren't doing great. And that's because actually harnessing consumer capacity is really hard. And so I think we've taken our time at Koii to launch a product that we know is really stable and has good unit fundamental costs, which has been an absolutely critical part of our kind of learning journey for the last 3 years. And we spent 4 years doing R&D to figure out how to do that precisely. The other side of the market right now, token launches, is around meme coins, which I think are actually probably the most interesting thing that's happened in crypto in a long time. There's two camps on this for sure. You've got people that are like fundamentalists and want to see like a bunch of PhDs on your pitch deck, and they want to know that you've got like the smartest people in the industry figuring out how to do really good tech. And while that's definitely important, the thing that meme coins have shown is that they're absolutely critical community components that you can't fake. And it's almost more important to have that community thing figured out than it is to have the PhDs. Because if you get the community side done, like, Dogecoin could go out right now and probably get a bunch of really smart people to build them an AI. Because they've got the money and they've got the community scale. And if Dogecoin had a bunch of node operators, it's like, boom, instant AI. And they could build something that would be like a ChatGPT competitor just with the amount of proceeds and funding that they have. And I think that cannot be overstated. It's an incredibly powerful part of what's happening in this ecosystem. So what we're kind of trying to do at Koii is to combine those two things together. And I'm less worried about when the Koii token launches, though it does appear that that's coming up very soon. Our foundation team handles most of that. I work at Koii Labs, which is our technology company. So what we're looking at, though, instead is more, can we use the node infrastructure that we have to support all of these really interesting communities that are coming out? So we're taking a lot of the great ideas that are coming out of the DePIN side and finding interesting markets there. And then we're trying to combine those with the community aspects of like taking lots of computers and lots of people and helping people launch their own tokens. So the last thing on this, sorry, really long answer. Last thing on this that's kind of cool is we launched this product yesterday. We call it the Easy Sandbox. So it's a website you can go to, farm.koii.network. And this website basically is designed to help you launch your own DePIN network, like a meme coin. Wow. So in the same way that you can go on pump.fun and you can launch your own token and then get a bunch of people to mine your token, on Koii, you can now launch a token to a community of people and then get them to contribute their computers. So the first thing that you can do with these, obviously, is you can pay a bunch of people to act like Twitter bots to go promote your coin. So that's the very base case. But then on top of that, you can also add storage. You can add a social network. We have a one-click template for a dating app coming. One of our ecosystem projects is building. And there's things like search engines and AI assistants and things like this that you can also layer on. So what we're hoping to have people do in the next couple of months is to basically launch their own token and then harness compute capacity behind it to build a really strong community that actually has real products. And if that works, it's going to be absolutely incredible. It means a lot of token lockup. It means very little token sell pressure because this is all consumer capacity. And these things are just growing really fast. So yesterday, we launched a beta of this, which is on October 14th, we launched the beta. And in 6 hours, we had so many signups that the thing crashed, which is pretty cool. Something like 4,000 people tried to sign up, 500 people got accounts, and then the whole thing just went down. But we are turning it back on now. We've doubled the capacity for it. And so there's enough space for 1,000 developers. So we're sending out invites now. We had to make it like a whitelisting invite-only thing. We thought that we weren't going to get that much demand. But yeah, it's a lot of interest.
Oh, a ton of interest. And I just want to spend a little bit more time here. And thanks for that response. Just to kind of recap it, the two things that you saw were DePIN and almost like meme coin culture. But the thing from the meme coin culture, which I also agree, is the community aspect of it, of getting people who are really passionate and care about the thing that you're building. Some of the greatest inventions in the world you've never heard of, but the ones that were marketed the best are the ones that are around and, sustained. And I think something that's really interesting that I want to spend time on is around meme coins, right? Like just in general, when you look at this surgence that's kind of happened this year, it's become very popular across multiple chains. Like you've seen this meme culture that's happened in all these different ecosystems, from Solana, Base. You even see it now happening in the Bitcoin ecosystem with runes and other things like that. So, when you look at like integrating, which you kind of like just talked about with what you just launched, like the landscape of AI and decentralized technologies, obviously Koii is taking those first steps, what you just described, but how do you see it continuing to evolve as we head into 2025?
So I think the thing that we're seeing with meme coins very, very clearly is people have communities that are not in crypto, and they're bringing those communities into crypto and getting them to hold on to these tokens. So a lot of people's first foray into crypto might be to buy some meme coin now, which wasn't true in the past. It used to be that you would buy like Bitcoin, or you'd buy Ethereum, or you'd buy some like, long-term bet. Like my first investment was into an ICO in 2016. And that was a company that I thought was going to revolutionize the payments industry. Like they were going to take down PayPal. And so that's what got me in. And then I bought some Ethereum so I could get into that sale. And I think what's probably going to happen here instead is people are going to buy a meme coin because an Instagram or TikTok influencer told them that they could get in on this new community craze. And it's going to be like $5 per person with like 100,000 or 500,000 people behind them. And that kind of thing is going to grow these communities very, very fast. And it's going to snowball to the point that will be the main onboarding strategy. And then you'll have people who ride these things up, diversifying into Bitcoin and Ethereum, which is a very different way than how this has gone in the past. It used to be that Bitcoin and Ethereum were the entry point, and then you went from those into all the different alts. And I think the altcoins are now kind of creating a community resurgence with meme coins, which is a really interesting super cycle narrative. And what we're hoping to do with this, of course, with Koii is we'd like to keep you in that alt. So as opposed to you actually selling that alt to buy Bitcoin or get into Filecoin or something like that, we'd like to see that alt actually increase in utility over time. By utilizing a community of people's computers to actually create value. So you buy into some meme coin, and then that meme coin community continues to deliver value so that you continue holding that token and staking it on your computer to get more value. Of course, we like that because that means more transaction fees to the Koii network. I think that's also what Solana and a lot of these other guys are seeing. You see Sui and Solana kind of fighting over the meme coin narrative. And the issue there is that they're basically just payment layers. So ultimately, they're very good for DeFi and for like the trading kind of cycle of it, but they don't actually provide any fundamental value. So we're trying to bring in a lot more fundamental value at the base layer.
Yeah. I like what you said around the subject of like, what does it mean for an entry point into the world of Web3? Back in when I got into Web3 back in 2018, Bitcoin and Ethereum were my entry points. And then I started to look elsewhere. Whereas like some of the newest people that I've heard come in have been going after random meme coin crazes. And they're like, oh, let me look at the rest of this stuff. So there is this like interesting change as far as like new entrants coming into the space. But one of the things that you
go ahead.
Go ahead.
There's an interesting thing there. It's all about user experience. So with Pump.Fun, the user experience to launch your own token went from like, maybe a couple of hours for a complicated, like for a fairly experienced engineer doing something slightly complicated for a couple of hours, down to like, everybody's cousin can do it. And so that's why the TikTok generation are finding this and getting really excited about it, because now it's just, you can go to the website and you click a couple buttons and it's live. And I think the trick is that we can actually get to that level of composability and this like amazing, really easy user experience for all kinds of other stuff too. And it's not just about launching tokens. It could be like launch your own ChatGPT, launch your own Dropbox, launch your own Google Docs within that meme coin community. And if it's all plug and play, then it's going to be an absolutely incredible future for the internet.
Right. But one of the things that you were starting to talk on that I want to go back and spend more time on is like the value creation for those who potentially want to either create memes or other things within the Koii network. So one of the things that Koii has is the Koii Ocean Accelerator. Can you just talk a little bit more about its role in supporting new projects within Koii network?
Yeah, so there's two types of projects that we're looking for the Ocean Accelerator. And by the way, we just partnered with Blockchain Founders Fund and a couple of other big VCs. So we're going to be basically setting up our own in-house accelerator where we don't actually take anything for the projects, but we're just here to help them get through the pipeline. Which is ultimately about creating value for our node operators. Because if the Koii node operators have lots of new tokens to mine, then the node operators are excited and they stick around, and then Koii keeps growing. So that's always been our mandate. We want to help those people. But the background on this is if you're looking at building projects in this ecosystem, you've got two types. There's the kind of token that anchors a community, and so that's a meme coin. It's like so and so comes out off TikTok, and they've got some new dog that's like a cute dog on TikTok that everybody likes. And now there's a token for that. And that community of people who like that particular icon are going to hold on to that token because it's fun. And they're each going to hold like $1 to $5 of that token. And then there's the other side of it, which is how do we create composable things for people to do with those? And previously, the way this worked was like protocols, which is like Filecoin, something like a Kosh or Render. All of these protocols, there was something very complex that was happening, some kind of like a proof of real work that was happening. And then that had its own token associated with it. And the only way to like do the thing that was happening in the protocol was to have that token. So that's how Filecoin works as an example. If you want to store files on Filecoin, you pay with Filecoin tokens. And not to attack them in particular, they were like amazing pioneers in this industry, but they really locked in the protocol to the token because that's how you used to fund them. And what we're trying to do instead is we want you to create templates for engagements between people, which is still a protocol. So like you and I can store files for each other, but we can denominate it with whichever token we want. And so each one of these protocols that's created actually gives greater value to every one of these meme coins that gets created. So you bring the community people on one side, and you bring in the protocols and the templates on the other side. And you combine the two to make something that's very powerful. And they feed off of each other in a very interesting way. So the template and protocol role is to extract fees in whatever token the people are using to denominate their interaction.
And so for those who like that concept and they're like, that sounds cool, I want to go build that, you've created this accelerator to basically help make that happen.
Yeah, because you have to be able to pay rent, Nobody just jumps in and gives their life to these things without, some kind of coverage on the financial side. For me, it was because I was running this crypto school for a few years, and then I had a consulting company on the side, and we had enough free resources that we were able to incubate some projects. But most people don't have the time to get there and maybe aren't going to make that commitment. So we're trying to really open it up. At the same time, we're also working with a lot of code schools, and we're actually working with like non-crypto code schools. There's a lot of people out there teaching JavaScript bootcamp, or they're getting somebody in out of university, their first time trying to get a job as a software engineer. And we're trying to find those people who are actually not as experienced in the traditional way of building things, and then asking them to try and think about new ways to build the new internet. And the trick here is, of course, for every 10 people that try to do one of these courses, one of them is going to have an incredible genius level idea. And we want to make sure that every single one of those people gets all the way through to launching a product. Because that's what makes the difference to like actually creating the new internet. We're talking about decentralization. It's not about Google and Facebook going out and building all of these products themselves. It's about finding the people who are going to lead the charge and then giving them the resources and supporting them It's a lot more than just giving them money too, right? It's like
Right.
you need to like emotionally support people as they go through this transition of becoming a leader, because that's really hard to do. So we like to say we're taking people out of the goldfish tank, where like the whole world is watching you on the current internet and you're a little goldfish. You want to take somebody out of the goldfish tank and turn them into a koi fish that can swim in the pond by themselves and be a leader. And eventually, if you jump into the ocean, then you're really a leader and you've created your own pond, and that's why we call it the Koii Ocean Accelerator.
Nice.
Lots of fish ponds going on.
A ton. And one of the things in that is you brought up the fact that you work with a couple of dev shops, and when you work with that, you have traditional Web2 devs that are exploring and curious, like, hey, what's this Web3 thing? How can I get involved over here? And you're bridging the gap with in one capacity with bringing talent over into Web3. But what are other ways that you're helping to bridge the Web2 to Web3 gap?
So it's more about code schools. The thing people don't realize is like right now, Ethereum's all Solidity, right? So if you build an app on Ethereum, you have to write Solidity. There's about 45,000 full-time Solidity engineers in the world. And there's about another 3,000 that are trained every year. With Rust, which is the language that Solana and Polkadot and a few other networks use, Rust only has about 8,000 full-time engineers around the world. And there's only about 500 new ones being trained every year. And so those are very small populations. If you consider the number of people who are buying crypto versus the number of people who are actually capable of making new applications and iterating the technology, it's very small, not a lot of developers. And so what we're trying to do is to find new markets full of developers who want to come and change this stuff. So JavaScript right now is 13 million people around the world who are professional JavaScript engineers and work full-time in JavaScript. And then on top of that, there's another million being trained every year. And those are just astounding numbers when you consider it's like we're talking thousands of times bigger than the entire market of existing crypto developers. So we're going to those code schools and we're going to the websites where people get these certifications. We're even actually advertising on LinkedIn now and offering our course load directly to people who've come out of a course and are, they're certifying themselves. So the first time that somebody goes out on LinkedIn and they say, I'm a JavaScript engineer, then they get an ad and they're like, hey, would you like to be a decentralized JavaScript engineer? And then we make that extremely easy for them. So that's what these developer tools that we've been working on are for. But it's less about partnerships and it's less about like, the traditional, I think the traditional crypto thing is very much about like name dropping partnerships. We're very much more like a traditional like Web2 business. So there's this amazing quote from, I think it's Ben Horowitz, one of the guys who started A16Z. And what he says is, you can either have one silver bullet or you can have 1,000 lead bullets. And I actually don't believe in silver bullets. I don't know that they work. I think this industry has been waiting for silver bullets for 10 years and it hasn't gotten us there. So what we're trying to do instead is just traditional business development and marketing and getting lots of people in who can do amazing things and then try to support them all the way through.
Yeah. I think it's a good sustained talent wins. And you have to be able to be around long enough to see the talent get through the cycle of challenges to come on the other side and keep integrating and building upon that. So I think it's a good approach yourself. I want to go back for a second because earlier in the conversation, you talked about core rewards, user contributions. Can you just kind of talk a little bit more about this incentive structure and how it works?
Yeah. So with Bitcoin, the way Bitcoin works is transaction fees get redistributed to node operators. And then there's a certain amount of Bitcoin that gets created every time that a new block is mined. And that's where all the Bitcoin comes from. It's either coming to you from transaction fees that someone else paid or it's being created. And the amount of Bitcoin that we create gets smaller every few years, and that's called the halving. And what that's meant to do is over time, it creates a greater and greater scarcity of Bitcoin, which means that Bitcoin can be something that's financially valuable and has projected greater value over time. What we're trying to do at Koii is very similar, except that we also want to reward certain types of behavior beyond just confirming and processing transactions. Actually, what we want to do is very similar to what Michael Saylor said back like 2018, 2019. There's this amazing quote from him that said, like, Bitcoin is a swarm of cyber hornets growing, feeding on the goddess of wisdom, growing ever faster, stronger, and smarter. And the idea that Bitcoin gets smarter is actually the hard part here. It definitely gets faster and it definitely gets stronger over time. So the network's there's a higher hash rate every year and it's getting more and more secure. And that part's amazing. And it does actually get incrementally faster because there's all kinds of new ways of confirming Bitcoin transactions and making your transactions go through a little bit quicker. So Bitcoin does get faster and stronger, but it doesn't necessarily get smarter. And we wanted Koii to get smarter over time. That's why it's called the knowledgeable, open, infinite internet. We wanted the actual tokenomics of the network to make it get smarter. And so the way that we do that, there's two sides of it. The first one is we reward people who run nodes because nodes allow us to have more compute capacity. And so if you have more AI and more compute capacity, then you can do more. The other side of AI, though, is having a lot of data. And how do you reward good data? That's really the hard part, right? Like, what defines good data? How do you actually identify it? And so we came up with this thing called the proof of real traffic back in 2021. And a proof of real traffic is very much like a Bitcoin proof of work, except that instead of being mined by a computer that has access to transaction data, a proof of real traffic is created whenever you look at content as an individual. And it comes from your private key to the public key of a piece of content. And it's basically an attestation saying, I looked at this content and I thought that it was cool. And you can always revoke your proof of real traffic. You have a period of time to revoke them. So we built this into the core of the Koii Network. And what this does is it allows you to have data that is verified by people actually looking at it. And so currently what we're going to be doing is after the token launch, we'll have an incentive structure where this amount of proof of real traffic rewards gets slightly larger over time for a while and then tapers off. And the rewards for node operators will also do a similar taper. And so we're kind of combining the inflationary parts that we need for a really strong AI network by having part of it go towards really high value data and the other part of it going towards really high value compute. And if we combine these two together and we're able to amass a lot of devices and a lot of really good data, then we'll have probably the best breeding ground for the future of AI, which is what we're really trying to get to. And the cool thing is all of this information lives on Koii nodes, and the only way you can access it is if you have a high reputation in the network. And so if you want to build something on top of all this, you need to also be active in the ecosystem, or you have to pay for a lot of Koii tokens. And so this kind of creates this need for everybody to run the node and actually contribute. And the more you contribute, the more access you have.
Got it.
And ultimately revenue sharing and all that.
Absolutely. I think that was a really good explanation, and also a breakdown of just how important being part of, from a distributed compute standpoint, community is, and having good activity and consistency in there. And in a lot of ways, this can be a disruptor, and why I'm very bullish on how the intersection of DePIN and AI can come together and create value for a lot of people to be able to tap into. And I want to just get your vision of the future, right? So how do you envision the evolution of decentralized apps impacting traditional internet models? Because again, this is a model that is flipping Web 2 on its head in a lot of ways.
Yeah, so the other group that we work with a lot on the incubation side is Outlier Ventures, because we actually went through their accelerator. Jamie Burke's one of the lead guys there and one of the original founders. What he's been saying for a while, which I think is really salient, is that in the future, people won't use the internet to do work, right? We will use the internet to play and to have fun and listen to podcasts and interact with other people. And then our AI agents that act like us and talk like us and do what we want them to do will interact with other people's agents to do work. And so if I'm drop shipping, or if I'm running an online store, or if I'm trying to set up advertising or something like that, a lot of the things that generate a lot of money on the internet, all of those things will happen with my AI agent optimizing it for me, just like currently we do with stock trading, where it optimizes. You train an agent that actually does the thing and your algorithm does all the work. The question is, where do all of those things live in a trustless way? Because you need a lot of compute capacity, right? As an individual, I can't currently go rent a data center. I'm not the NSA. I'm not like Steve Jobs. I don't have tons of compute capacity. So where do I go to actually get all of this? And the question is, can we create a cloud of compute devices where everybody gets to share in this giant AI machine that can do all of the hard work for us? And that's where the revenue sharing aspect comes in. And if we do this correctly, each of us who participate in these systems will have a huge market advantage over everyone else. And so that'll lead to more revenue coming into our system through the revenue sharing side of it, allowing us to then buy more compute and data, and then leading back to us each having slightly greater value in the system. And I think it starts with very simple things like advertising, social media promotion, and the traditional stuff that's always made money on the internet. And then over time, it goes towards traditional AI agents, search engines, social networks, and the things that are a little bit harder to build. But the trick is, as long as we keep the unit costs low, we keep gradually creating more revenue, going into that revenue sharing pyramid, and then giving it out to everybody. And as long as everybody keeps getting a piece of it, then we can keep reinvesting it and getting more capacity. And that's what the network should look like over the next 5 years. There's a lot of other people working in this direction. I think Koii just has a bit of an advantage on the unit cost side, so we're hopefully going to be very competitive as things grow.
Yeah. I think that quote about we're going to use the internet for fun versus for work, and AI agents are going to be doing the rest is a very interesting concept. And I don't think that we're necessarily too far away from that being a real reality. And things like Koii, with being able to train these data models are helping us to get closer to that. So at the time of this recording, it is October, October 15th to be specific. And as you look out to your roadmap over there, let's call it the next 3 to 6 months, what are some things that people can look forward to?
So one of the really cool things is not having to choose what your node does. Currently, you have to pick which tasks your node actually does to make money for you. We're working on automating that so that your node will negotiate directly with the person who creates the Koii task, and then you won't have to do that hard work. So we're really actually trying to practice what we preach here. We would like your computer to be doing all the heavy lifting and actually even decide what it does for you, and you actually train it over time. And what that does as well on the other side is it means that all of those developers who are trying to sign up for our platform, they can launch a new token. And if they actually explain their tokenomics correctly, then all of these AI agents can decide whether or not to run their thing. And so it becomes like an active bidding practice, the same way that currently the advertising market works, where you bid for the ad and there's like, you're competing for keywords and each keyword costs a certain amount of money. The same way that all of that happens, I think we can soon have a compute marketplace where we're actually actively sharing all of our individual computers while we go to bed at night. The cool thing about that is that means that installing Koii will be a one click on every device. We also have mobile nodes coming out pretty soon. So that means that you'll go to bed at night and your Koii node will be on your phone, it'll be on your laptop. And you'll wake up in the morning, you'll earn a variety of tokens, all of which will be tradable across decentralized exchanges. And our decentralized exchange on Koii is launching in about probably a couple of weeks from now. It should be done before November 1st. And so that's going to mean that all of these tokens will all be individually liquid against each other. And as long as each one of these different products is being launched on the network generates value, you can even support other products. So, you imagine there's like 50 AI agent tokens out there. They each need storage. So as opposed to going to Filecoin and buying it directly from Filecoin, maybe each one of those also has a relationship with a different meme coin that's being used for storage. So you could have hundreds of meme coins that are providing storage. You could have hundreds of meme coins that are providing AI layers. And you could even have another layer of search engines that sits on top of it. And so each of our individual interactions on the internet could actually have behind it many different kind of tokenized gears within the machine. And you won't necessarily have to see any of them because DeFi has gotten good enough now that you can quickly trade between all of them. So that's a system that we've been building towards for a long time. But I think we're at this point, we're almost at maturity. And we're seeing a lot of developer activations coming in that are really excited to build on top of it. So if things continue at this rate, I imagine by next year, we'll have a lot of like really good consumer products that people can actually use. And behind the scenes, we'll actually be funding tons of people who have nodes, which it's always been the dream. And I hope it works.
Yeah. Well, that sounds really awesome. And Al, I really appreciate all the information you've been dropping on us on Koii. But now I'm excited to learn a little bit more about you. And now we're going to get into our next segment, which is Edge Quick Hitters.
I remember these. Cool.
A quick word from our sponsors who's ready to navigate the cutting edge of tomorrow's legal landscape. Because at Zuber Lawler, they're not just attorneys, they're visionaries. With expertise in emerging technologies like AI, blockchain, and the metaverse, they're paving the way for you to seize the future. For mergers and acquisitions to IP, their selective team delivers strategic solutions tailored to the ever-changing world of technology. Join us at Zuber Lawler, where the future meets the law at zuberlawler.com. Back to the episode. All right, so Edge Quick Hitters are a fun and quick way to get to know you a little better. There are 10 questions, and we're looking for a short or single word response, but feel free to expand if you get the urge. Are you ready?
All right, let's go.
All right, first question. What is the first thing you remember purchasing in your life?
Is it Backstreet Boys CD, I think. Someone else I knew had a like this little CD player.
Yeah, I think one of my first CDs I ever bought was a Usher Confession album, so I get that.
Nice, same era.
What is the first thing you remember selling in your life?
Pokemon card, for sure. I did not want to sell it either. My friend just kept aggressively asking me for this thing. And eventually I was like, I don't care that much about Pokemon. Here you go. I think I gave it to him for free, actually.
Nice. Good negotiation on his side. But yeah, man, I had a couple, I think, Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh cards I sold back in the day as well. So definitely can relate. What is the most recent thing you purchased?
Recent thing. I bought a bag that I can carry my computer in. Amazing purchase. So nice. Just went down. I have a huge travel backpack with me right now because I'm going around seeing all the different Koii community members. Now I had this little tiny bag that fits inside of my other bag, and I can put my laptop and my notebook in it and like go to a temple for the day and hang out or find somewhere like quiet to work, which has been good because I'm getting out of the house a little bit more. I came to Southeast Asia and spent the last like 2 weeks in a hotel room doing phone calls and working. So now I can slightly work on the run, which is very helpful.
Yeah, helps a lot. When you're in build mode, it's very easy to just seclude yourself, and now you get to be a little bit more social. So Sounds like a really good purchase. What's the most recent thing you've sold?
Most recent thing I sold, Koii tokens. We sold more of them today and pretty much every day this month, it seems like. Actually, I guess it's not me selling them. What did I sell? I don't sell a lot of stuff. I usually give things to people, to be honest. Yeah, the Koii Foundation sells tokens and pays our team, and I try to just help people if I can. I gave a bunch of people Koii tokens this week for trying out different products that we've had. So we gave away a couple tokens here and there.
Nice. So be on the lookout for everyone listening. You might have a way to get you some Koii tokens as well. What do you consider your most prized possession?
That's a great question. Wow. Probably my notebooks. I've been keeping notebooks since I was 14. And I, not like a journal, but like observations and key learning objectives. It's also where I design a lot of our products and stuff. I've been keeping those since I was 14 years old. So at this point, I've got like an entire bookshelf, like floor to ceiling, about 4 feet wide, eight stacks of them.
Wow.
The notebooks range in size from these little moleskins up to like, these like proper like textbook size ones. And yeah, they're stuffed with notes since I was 14 years old. So if my house is ever going to burn down, that's the first thing I'm going for. After like, the dog and the girlfriend.
Yeah. Wow. There might even be an exercise to like, how do you potentially digitize them into the future? So
I'm waiting until we have very secure storage because they're very special to me, and I currently don't trust any of my competitors to keep them. To keep them forever, because right now there's not really a good incentive mechanism for keeping storage forever, and like B, to keep them relatively encrypted. So I guess I could probably just publish them. At this point, it would be like a good practice to just open source all of my knowledge. That would probably be a good place to go with that.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It's a concept. I also have some journals on myself, and I was like, man, I should really digitize some of this stuff. So keep me in mind as you think through that process.
Hey, if I've got one customer, I have to build the product now. If you're going to use it, and I'm going to use it, someone else is going to use it. So we have to put it on Koii.
That's right. If you could buy anything in the world, digital, physical, service, experience, that is currently for sale, and money wasn't a problem, what would it be?
Currently for sale. That's a complicated phrase. A year or two ago, I would have said Twitter, because then we could have decentralized it. I don't think Elon's looking to sell it right now because they took it off the market. It's not on the public market anymore. I guess we could buy a controlling interest in Tesla, and that would be funny. And then Elon would be mad, and we could collectively be Elon's boss for a bit, and we get to see how that goes for him. That could be very interesting. We could try to decentralize Tesla. I hear they have an enormous compute capacity now. They've been building this giant data center for all the self-driving car data. So we could give that back to the people and build something really special with it.
That is such an interesting response. And I think that's going to be, that is so awesome. Like bringing it back to Elon, like, who knows how he would like respond to that, but like, that'd be very interesting to be able to take that compute power and like, oh my gosh, you'd instantly be a superpower with like all of that compute. I mean, there's either Microsoft or Amazon recently bought like a nuclear power plant that got like condemned, and they're going to like basically go and fix it so that they can like just have more energy. So it's a, like you said, the energy problem really is a challenge that's happening right now.
It is an enormous issue. Yeah, I think the weird thing about that is the reason that they want all this compute capacity and energy is because they want to have a centralized thing that they own that is treated like an asset. I think if you just like what we've looked at is the economics of just decentralizing it is actually pretty reasonable. So I have this tweet. It's one of my pinned tweets at the moment, saved on my profile. So people go look at al_from_Koii. I have this breakdown that I did of consumer device capacity. And so if you just use all of the current smartphones and computers in the world, you could build 108,000 ChatGPTs with only a third of the capacity. So everybody sleeps 8 hours a night. So if you just used all the devices that we all have and our internet capacity and our home electricity, you could build 108,000 instances of ChatGPT at like the current capacity level, right? So the idea that Sam Altman somehow needs like, $300 billion to do this, I think is kind of a land grab and like a way of fleecing some VCs. And there's definitely enough consumer capacity to do this. And also like if you distribute the compute capacity, you can actually do really interesting things with the energy load as well. So yeah, I'm not sure that we need to go and buy power plants to do this, but it is a great reason to subsidize nuclear power, which I fully believe in. So kudos to them for that.
That is a very interesting take. So for your next question, if you could pass on one of your personality traits to the next generation, what would it be?
I think probably the one that I've learned the most recently, which is patience. I think when we first started out building this, you guys interviewed me way back. We were very gung ho to go like make this thing real. And I think what I didn't realize is getting a generation of software developers up to the same capacity and a generation of like thinkers as well. I mentioned this before with like, mentoring founders is not as much just about technical capacity or like getting them financed. It's also like, there's like a psychological process that people go through to shift. And so I think if we are lucky to actually decentralize artificial intelligence, I think it's going to be like a 5 to 10 year process. And I think actually artificial intelligence itself is 10 years away from like real like AGI. As much as the things that we have access to right now feel really like very powerful, they're just like kind of a step up above natural language processors, and they cost a lot of money to run, and the unit costs aren't very good. But I think we will get to like, a device this size that has AGI in it at some point. It's just a matter of how long that's going to take. So by the time that we get there, I think we also, as a community and like as a culture, we need to shift towards a different attitude. And so I've kind of dedicated myself, and I think a lot of our team have, to helping that transition happen, where we take a lot of time to actually reflect on how we live and how we interact with technology. Because that's the part that's missing right now. I think if we go into a world where everybody has an AGI this big, and we still have the same like current capitalist mindset, that's just going to result in a lot of warfare and like just mass delirium as we spread all the fake news and we all convince each other. Because you imagine if you have an AGI this big, you can use it to make millions of Sybil accounts on every social network and then spam things, which is currently being done with ChatGPT and Cheat Layer and Shadow Layer and these other apps that actually allow you to do that like as a feature. And that's one of the big applications of artificial intelligence, is actually just to confuse other people. And it seems like we're headed for a world where that's the case, which is scary. So I think we all need to like be very conscious of our information diet, and we also need to be very conscious of how we use technology and its effects on other people. And I think that's going to be a massive cultural shift. So patience is the thing that we all need to figure out how to do there, I think.
Yeah.
Otherwise, things could be bad.
Absolutely. Patience is essential in so many different ways, especially just being an entrepreneur, especially just as we all grow in this life with different goals that we have. And with all new technology, it takes time to build and to actualize the vision. You brought up Elon earlier, and I just want to bring up Tesla. Like it lost money for years. And now it's like one of the largest companies in the world. So like sometimes you just got to have a vision of what happens, and it's patience and resilience. So I think that's a good trait to pass along. On the flip side, if you could eliminate one of your personality traits, what would that be?
I think probably the lack of empathy towards how long it takes someone else to do something, because there's always this switching cost. I think what we've noticed is at Koii, we have a very small core team who are incredibly capable people, because we all share exactly the same imagination of what's going to happen next. And that is really critical, because it means that when we each try to do something, we will do basically the same thing to get there. And then when you transfer that to somebody else's head, it takes a long time for them to figure out where you're going before they start working. And then that creates like a lot of lag time. And so as we've tried to scale things up over the last like 3 years, there's been phases where we tried to spread the idea too quickly and then like spend the resources to go and do it fast, because we felt like it was very urgent to solve this problem. And I think while it is very urgent, you also have to just be completely aware that humans just take time to do things and to catch up. So that's why we're really focused on education now. Because if I can find like one meme that allows people to catch up a little bit faster, then that brings like an extra 20,000 people up to like, 1% closer to target. And we just do that 100 times, as opposed to trying to convince everybody to go and solve the problem with us right now. We just like get everybody a little bit closer. And I think that's the real trick. So I guess it's patience and impatience, but in like a variety of different ways.
Yeah, it is interesting. The patience, self-patience, but then the impatience towards, like you said, others and how long that they take is definitely something that would be interesting, of like being very understanding of like meeting people where they are and helping them get up to speed faster. It definitely takes like an extra layer of like not just self-resolve, but like you said, patience in a lot of different ways. So
yeah,
very interesting.
One hopeful thing on that front, I really like this idea around, it's not just about Koii, it's about like pretty much any big social shift that you're trying to make happen. And I think we see this a lot in like, the way the US has become very polarized. And I think a lot of political spectrum has been very polarized, because there's like There's people who want to keep doing it the way they were doing it before, and there's people who really want everybody to change. And that makes everybody really uncomfortable. Because most people fall somewhere in the middle. And like, there's a bunch of people over here that want you to go this way, and there's a bunch of people over here who say that those people are crazy. And there's kind of progressives versus conservatives in every way. And I think as a species, what we end up needing to do is actually just to be able to discuss things very clearly and get there in a patient way. But usually the person who can explain it to you in a way that you're going to understand quickly is not available. And they have something else to be doing. And this might also be true for like, rocket science or developing artificial intelligence or like, I don't know, anti-aging gene therapy or any number of other like out there technologies, is that there's probably one person in the world who fully understands it, and getting that person to spend the time to explain it to you is very hard. And that means that like progress is slowed down by the amount of time that we have with geniuses or with people who actually really understand something. Or people who've like taken the time to go really far into the woods and come back with knowledge. That person only has so much time before they die because they spent most of their life going and struggling through the woods with a machete, trying to figure out like where the treasure was. So I think the main takeaway with this is artificial intelligence fixes that in a really big way. If I can create an AI agent copy of myself that can talk to people for hours at length and actually help them understand how to think about this particular problem, if they care to talk to me, they can learn a lot from that agent without slowing down what I can figure out next. And that means that we can simultaneously teach people and discover the future. And if AI can do that for us, it's going to help, I think, alleviate a lot of the tension in society, because we won't have progressives and conservatives anymore. We'll just have a bunch of people who have different opinions on things who all agree on the facts, and we can all like kind of move forward together. And the other option is propaganda en masse from billions of people at the same time. So I hope that we get to the place where we can teach each other and be patient and grow together, because that's the future I want to live in.
Yeah, and hopefully one that we can get closer towards. Now, what did you do right before you came and joined us on this podcast?
I just went and sat down at the Buddhist temple across the street. Actually, it was really nice. Very, very zen experience.
Awesome. And what are you going to be doing right after the podcast?
I'm probably going to eat some dinner.
Nice. And we always like to wrap up with a bonus question. Obviously, this has been a very heavy conversation around artificial intelligence in the future and where it is headed. Do you have I won't say a bullish versus bearish, but like, what's your take on where we're headed in AI? Like, we're in 2024. Let's just call it in the next 6 years when we get to the end of 2030. Like, where do you see the jump in AI being?
I think there's two main things that are going to happen. Right now, AI is a really good propaganda machine. So like ChatGPT can write more essays per second than I can read per day, probably. And that's scary because it means that the number of fake posts on the internet is increasing exponentially. And I think by 2030, it's going to be able to synthesize video faster and more efficiently than a human can actually interpret whether that's a real video or not. So the legal system is going to have problems. The information system around government is going to have problems. The general news infrastructure is going to have problems. The financial system is probably going to have problems. Because the amount of fake information that we're going to have to process is huge. And that's going to necessitate making things that check information to identify if it's fake or not. And I think we're not ready to handle that situation, because that means that we're going to be under the same scrutiny that the AI is under. And we're going to constantly have to do are you a robot thing and select the stop signs. But it's going to get progressively harder to prove that you're not a robot. And that's kind of frightening. So there's some stuff out there like WorldCoin that's kind of solving this problem, but there's a good chance that we don't have a good solution for that at the moment. And so what I'm hoping to do with Koii, one of the big things that we're trying to set up right now is if you have a computer, you can prove that you're a human by running a Koii node and being part of our ecosystem. And you can have a lot of cryptographic proofs that verify who you are. So at least within the world of Koii, we'll be able to identify who the people are and who the people aren't. And then it won't belong to like Sam Altman or some other Silicon Valley person. It'll belong to all of us who are part of the network. Which that's something that we're really passionate about. And I think that's a problem that we can definitely fix by 2030. What else we can fix by then is a question of how much capacity we have and how fast the network grows. But I think we can also do a lot of this AI agent stuff, and we can make a lot of that revenue go towards like improving how people use the internet and keeping them connected instead of disconnected the way that the fake news thing seems to do.
Awesome. Well, definitely appreciate you answering all our quick hitter questions. As we wrap up, we always like to leave a moment for shout outs. This can be for anyone who Doesn't always necessarily get their flowers, but are definitely helping to, move Koii forward or helping you in your own life. So this is your moment to give any shout outs that you would like. And now for a quick word from our sponsor before we dive into the next segment. Are you ready to take your sports predictions to the next level? Look no further than maincard.io, the fantasy management platform that's taking the blockchain world by storm. With MainCard, every card is a ticket to excitement. You can predict sport outcomes, trade cards in the marketplace, and challenge opponents in thrilling weekly duels. And don't wait. Head to maincard.io now and start earning rewards with your NFTs, because it pays to be early. And now back to today's episode.
Probably my grandma, my girlfriend, my parents, and my sister, who are actually all there for me as I go through this journey. And I think the team, obviously at Koii, who've been through this so many times, and all of our respective family members who've watched this go up and down over the last 4 years while we spent the time to do the R&D. Because going the ethical path on these things isn't easy. And as you go that way, you have to say no to going and doing the easy thing and just raising money, which we've definitely been through the ups and downs now. And I think we've ended up in a place where the thing is really working, which is really cool. But it took a lot of sleepless nights and a lot of very significant, patient people around us to get us here.
Awesome. Well, I think that's a really amazing shout out. And I'm sure everyone who was shouted out will be very appreciative. And of course, for everyone who's listening to this and they're fired up about Koii, they want to get involved in this community, they want to figure out how they can receive some of these contributions, etc. Where can they go to learn more about you and Koii?
So koii.network is always the place to go. It's got the Koii Twitter on there as well as my own. And you can get the note, which takes 2 to 3 minutes and is super, super easy to do. The other thing you might want to check out if you're a little bit more theoretically inclined is my blog, econ3.org. So that's ECON3.org. We're trying to figure out how to do collaborative economics there, which is all this revenue sharing type stuff that we've been working on. And I, of course, post most of this on my Twitter, Al_from_Koii. So AL_FROM_KOII. And you can follow me there. And I've got all kinds of cool research content coming out every day.
Awesome. We'll definitely appreciate that, Al. And for everyone listening, we've reached the outer limit of the Edge of NFT for today. Thanks for exploring with us. We've got space for more adventures on this starship, so invite your friends and recruit some cool strangers. That would make this journey all so much better. How? If you're listening, go to Spotify or iTunes or Myco right now, rate us to say something awesome. Or if you're watching this on YouTube, join over 130,000 other followers by hitting the subscribe button and passing this episode on to a friend or two. You can catch us now on myco.io, that's myco.io, where you can watch and earn for your time and attention. Lastly, be sure to tune into the next episode so you can learn and get more great Web3 content. Thanks again for sharing this time with us today.
The views and opinions expressed on Edge of NFT reflect solely those views and opinions of the show hosts and its guests. Please make sure to do your own research. Our show is not financial advice. You understand that you are using any and all information available on or through this podcast at your own risk. Whenever making financial decisions, we recommend doing your own research and talking to your accountant for financial advice. From time to time, we may feature sponsored content on the show for which we receive value, and we may share links for which we receive a commission if you make a purchase through one of those links. Refer to our website, www.edgeofnft.com, for our full disclaimer, terms and conditions, and privacy policy.